we've alluded several times to layers, layers are actually the most important part of Photoshop elements. They're what give it its power. And sometimes it's a little difficult for people to get the idea of what layers are and what they can do. Until you start working with them, it's all going to be kind of abstract to you. But the beginner's error with Photoshop is to say, why should I bother? It's just making it more complicated and harder than it needs to be. Once you start using them, you'll love them. So if you have that tendency to say, I don't want to use layers, just try and fight it for a while. Here's a picture that has a lot wrong with it, and we're going to go through real quickly and just use a few simple tools to try and retouch it and make it better. So over here you'll see is your layers palette, and the picture starts as it's only one layer. It starts as a background. The first thing I'm going to do is duplicate this layer by dragging it and dropping it on the new layers icon. And then I'm going to change it from a background layer to a layer by double-clicking on where it says background and just giving it a name. It can be named anything. I'm naming it layer 1 just to make it easy. I'm just keeping the background so that we'll have it to look at later to see where we started. The layer that's on top will cover over the layer that's on the bottom. So if you make changes up here, you won't see the original. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the red eye. So I click on the red eye tool and just center my target over her eye and get rid of that demon look. The next thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to create more layers than we need here because I want to be able to turn things on and off. The next thing we're going to do is take the healing brush. And you can see that there are a few imperfections here. They're not big deals, but people, in a photograph, in a portrait, you kind of like to look your best. So let's take the healing tool and just do a few spot checks. I just healed a drop on my monitor, not on the girl. So we'll just go through here and take out a few of the little problems that you can see. Well, that one didn't work. A few of the problems that you can see on the picture. I'm not going to get crazy with this because we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to try and make some of this just look a little bit nicer. And notice all I'm doing is using the spot healing brush. I'm not using the cloning brush. I'm not trying to do anything really complicated with it. I'm just taking out a few of the spots on her face so that it's a little bit smoother. Now, you also notice as we enlarge it that there's a lot of artifacts. I think this must have been a scanned photo. These aren't pores or anything that have to do with the girl herself, but they are some roughness in the picture. First, I'm going to use the cloning tool, and I'm going to de-eyebrow her a little bit too while I'm at it, while I'm thinking of it. And I'm using the cloning tool rather than spot healing brush because I want to match this area in tone, and I don't want to get any more hair in it, and the spot brush would put some hair back in. Now what I'm going to do is I want to smooth her face out a little bit, get rid of some of those lines and bumps that are from the photo paper that have nothing to do with the actual picture of the girl. So what I've done is created a new layer again, and I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, and I'm going to use this one called Gaussian Blur. And you can blur from a very small amount, 0.1, to a ridiculously large amount where you won't be able to see anything. And you see a preview here. What I'm going to do is blur it to about 1. And you'll see in the preview that the girl's face is starting to look much smoother. We lost a lot of those bumps and lines from the photograph. But the problem is when we do that, we also blur her eyes and other things that we don't really want to blur. So I'm going to take the eraser and change it to a brush. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. And I'm going to erase her eyes so that, remember I said the layer covers up the one beneath, it doesn't change it. If you look over here on my layers, you see I've just punched a hole through that top layer, and we're down to where her eyes were originally, and they're much brighter. Also going to give her eyebrows and her lips back, and her ears, and go over her hair kind of lightly and quickly, because all I really wanted to do was to, I don't know what that is up there. All I really wanted to do was to smooth out her face a little bit. So in just a few seconds, what we've done is gone from, let's see if I can do it quickly, gone from this picture to this picture. And I think you can see the difference here. Let me make it a little bit bigger so we're closed in on her more. There's how we started. Here's how we ended. So if we were printing this out, I think you would much rather, and I'm pretty sure this girl herself would much rather have this one in a frame sitting on a coffee table than that one. And even with the full editor, which can be a little complicated to use, we've only had to use a few tools and a few tricks to get that effect. So that's a demonstration of some of the tools and how they go together and how layers make it much easier. We could have done all of that on the background, except we couldn't have used the filter to smooth out the skin and then taken out the parts that we wanted to be sharp again. Because on one layer, if I'd erased it, we would have taken her eyes off completely. But because we had layers underneath, what we were able to do is to just make the parts that we wanted to blur blurry and kept the underlying layers nice and sharp.